Yeah, let's get the party started. Good evening, everyone. We have a pretty stacked agenda today, and so we're going to start with giving space to our DEP colleague here, Alfonso Lopez, who's the Queens Commissioner for New York City DEP, and he's here to talk with make a presentation on the Union Turnpike Green Infrastructure Medians project that we're all very interested in hearing about. So, Alfonso, I'll pass it right over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Edgar, and thanks to everybody. And I always gotta give a shout out to Christine, who is maybe one of the best advocates, among the community boards. We talk frequently, and we interact in a lot of these meetings, and she's never shy to say I need this, I need that, and we've been spending a lot of time, on the street, seeing some things, and on phone calls, and we were trying to get this one squared away. This is one I had to get smart on myself because it's been a couple months, but still relatively new compared to some of my colleagues. But again, just can never thank you guys enough for the partnership. So I know today we're going to be talking about the green infrastructure and medians. We have a couple sites. The one particular to this group is the Union Turnpike. I think just so everybody knows who's on here on our end, we can do a quick round of intros. I'm Alfonso Lopez. I'm your Queens Commissioner for DEP. We have Andres. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Alfonso. Hi, everybody. My name is Andres Garcia. I am the Director of Stormwater Resiliency, overseeing the on-site and cloud-based portfolios here at the EP Green Infrastructure Unit.
And I don't believe Rupesh is on. I didn't see his name. So we have some colleagues from DOT. I see Al Silvestri. There you go.
Good evening, everyone.
Who you all
I'm joined
know.
with Craig Chin.
And Craig Chin, who's the only one of the group that actually wore the swag. I need to take a lesson from that and get my DEP swag on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share. Let me know if you see this screen. Let's see. All right, should say green infrastructure medians. See that?
Sounds good. Yep.
Great. All right, here we go. So we have a couple projects, Springfield Boulevard, Francis Lewis, and Union Turnpike. I'll go through the overall, and then we'll jump over to Union Turnpike. Oops. Okay, so project goals. As you know, it's to capture rainfall events that produce about or over 2 inches of rain in an hour. This is what we consider a 10-year storm. To reduce flooding, our sewer infrastructure is designed to handle 1.5 to 1.75 inches. So these are the events that exceed that. The intercept is 6.74 million gallons of stormwater a year from entering the city's sewer system to reduce combined sewer overflows into local waterways. Also to reduce urban heat island effect, establish biodiversity and habitat. These areas that pollinators can use as jump off points, and other species can benefit from these green spaces. And beautify the neighborhoods with native plantings, and we'll talk about some of that towards the end of it. And of course, as always, safety is paramount, so improving pedestrian safety. And here you'll see an example of our green infrastructure. I'm sure you've seen some of these in different fashion around the borough. Green infrastructure, GI, absorbs water into the ground in areas with good soil. It can also green neighborhoods, reducing urban heat island effect. These require some, science and engineering behind them. We have to make sure that the ground under it can actually take the water. We don't want to create something and then just have another object that's going to pond on top of it, and create more problems than it's supposed to fix. These projects reduce street flooding by catching stormwater before it enters the sewer system, freeing up drainage capacity and reducing sewer overflows into local waterways. So similar to how our green, gray, blue infrastructure, these are all methodologies that help either hold water or absorb water, so that it buys our system time, so that over 2 inches can before just going on all at once into the system and overloading it, can offset some of that, to let our system have some time to catch up. So giving you some examples of GI, this I believe is one that we did right when I came on board over on Hillside Avenue. You see on the left side, you see the what's actually underground. These storage chambers, which are essentially areas that they're empty until the water comes down. They get absorbed, and then it helps hold some of the water in addition to some of the soil and the plantings, which you see on the right. Also on the right, you see sort of like what the other goal of this is to beautify the neighborhood, add native plants that give you all those additional effects, not just capturing the water, which is paramount, but also to beautify the neighborhood and allow for green spaces for folks to enjoy. And this gives you a dissection of what one of these can kind of look like. You see the ground, native soil, and then you see the chambers that can help retain some of that, in addition to the soil, the planting. So it's a layered approach and a layered system to just catch as much water as we can to give the system additional time. Like I said at the beginning, there's 3 project locations that we're looking at right now: Francis Lewis, Union Turnpike, Springfield Boulevard. So I don't think folks are as interested in the other 2, so we can skip ahead to your section. But as I go, I'll go so you can kind of see sort of what we're doing in other areas similar to where it is in the district. So we have the Springfield area, we have this gray space, just similar to what we're looking at in the other areas. The idea is to convert this gray space that isn't helping to retain water into a space like this, which has native plants and the infrastructure right under it. You'll see similar along Francis Lewis Boulevard in this rendering. Again, currently a gray space. And then we're looking to turn that with the infrastructure underneath and the plantings on top into an area that would look like this. And so now we get to your space. So this is along Union Turnpike between Metropolitan Avenue and 71st Avenue, all along this blue space that you see here. And so currently, as in the other 2, sits as a gray space. As you see here, we have where it currently stands, and what we would like to do, take it from here to an area like this, where it has the infrastructure and also the native plantings, where it's not just aesthetically pleasing, but it's also beneficial to retaining water. You'll look at this rendering here, and you can see everything from end to end, where we'll be putting green space. You'll see the storm chambers at the head, closer to Metropolitan Avenue, and so this would be the full stretch would include what was in the previous rendering. And here you'll see this further up. Again, you see a infrastructure here labeled as storm chambers. You have the green space, and so the idea is, like I said, just it's functional and it's aesthetically pleasing. And then all the way up to Metropolitan Avenue here at the head. And again, same sort of setup all the way from end to end. And I know for folks who are particularly interested in like, okay, what does it include in terms of like the green space? Native plants are an important part of this, not just because they are, good to look at, but they're also healthier for all the creatures in the area, for the pollinators, and they're also, good for drainage. So the bottom, I don't know, it's kind of small on my screen, so I'm assuming it's kind of small on your screen, and I can get you copies of this. But we'll have daylilies, blue stems, and then we'll have fescue, bluegrass, and ryegrass. So a combination of all of those will be included in that space. And I think that runs us through the deck. So we can, let me unshare, stop sharing. All right, are we seeing each other again?
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, I can get you some of this so you can actually look through it, and ask any additional questions. But we have some folks on here now, and I think, we'd like to take some of your questions, Christine, if that's all right. And we can just go ahead and start.
Awesome. Thank you, Alfonso. That was great succinct presentation of the project. And I think just because I think Peter's also been heavily thoughtful about this. Peter, I'd like for you to kind of help kind of distill the things that we've been seeing in our conversations in here, and like what are the kind of main things we want to ask about.
Sure. Well, actually, I'm going to throw to Eugene first. His hand was up right away, and then after him, I'll put my hand up just as a placesaver. If there's anything else, I'll jump in with that.
Great.
Awesome. Then Eugene, go for it.
Yeah, just first I want to say thank you. It's not every day that you get the commissioner attention on something like this, so I just appreciate you coming out and doing a late night meeting with us and hearing our concerns or comments or suggestions and really taking our feedback. So just want to start by saying thank you to you and all the staff here. I recognize this is a late night meeting, so just really appreciate your time. Yeah, like I primarily just want to learn about the project. I live right next door to it. I am concerned about some parts of it because there are a lot of trees on the medians there. There's also issues with access to the park. A lot of people park along Union Turnpike and walk to the park right across the medians. So there's like a path now that people can cross. And there's not really a lot of crosswalks. You'd have to walk really far to hit the nearest crosswalk. So I think people are still going to, cross over the medians. And then in terms of stormwater, there is ponding that's on one end of the project, but really there's no ponding throughout the main areas of the project. The side of the project that's closer to 71st, where Union Turnpike turns, there's ponding on the side closer to the park when it rains. But besides that, there's really no ponding along the medians. And then the other thing is, something that I know is important is access to the park in terms of pedestrian access and bike access. And the greenway is planned to be coming soon, which is not too far from Union Turnpike. So I definitely wanted to put that into consideration as well as this project progresses forward. But yeah, I'm hearing that kind of the plans to start this are imminent, and really appreciate your time talking to us and telling us what it entails and taking our feedback.
Sure, and then thank you for the feedback. I mean, I'll tell you, whenever Heather or Christine ask for anything, I'm we're always ready to run. So we appreciate the partnership, like I said, and a lot of these issues, whether it's the more micro, my catch basins clogged up, to bigger issues like this, it's important. The partnership's important because the quicker we hear from you, the quicker we can address it, and we've been able to do some of that already across the district. So that's been very helpful. I know we had a couple questions here about the medians, the ponding. The ponding I actually would like to come back to. If there's generally anywhere there's issues with ponding already, like let's just talk outside of this, flag it for us. Always include Heather and Christine, but flag any of those issues for us, and we'd like to. Those are things that we may be able to address ahead of time before this is even underway. So just always reach out to us. I think everybody has my contact. It's the Queens DEP at dep.nyc.gov. I'll put it in I believe there's a chat. I'll put it in the chat, and Christine and Heather know how to reach us also, but always include them so that we want to make sure there's accountability. And I'm going to ask Andres if you can weigh in on some of these questions.
100%. So from what I gathered, one of them being folks crossing over the medians to go to the park nearby. I think I captured that right. I actually have, and I hate to answer a question with a question, but I have to ask: is there are there like preferred paths of travel that the community takes? I only ask because, and I don't know this at this current time. I believe the contractor is still working through the MPT plans, which is maintenance protection of traffic.
Yeah.
And as part of the MPT plans, we obviously have to provide for accessibility and
yeah. No, that's a great question. There's a horse trail entrance alongside Union Turnpike, right kind of in the middle of the project, and a lot of people cross the street there over the medians. So I would say there, and then by the playground, there is a crosswalk there, and then along Metropolitan where there's a crosswalk as well.
I got the horse trail. I got the Metropolitan. What was the other one?
Playground.
By the playground. Yeah, but the horse trail is the only one that doesn't have a crosswalk where people tend to park on the other side and then cross over the median.
Okay, no problem. I'll be sure to convey that to the construction management team as well as the contractor and make sure that whatever accommodations we can make and afford based on whatever DOT permits allow, of course, and MPT regulations. Yeah, I'm happy to float over to them and make sure that they're aware of that. Absolutely.
I will make a point, the non-fun point that, you know, we do want to make sure, we do want to encourage folks, as I think currently stands, and DOT can, you know, jump in on that, that we want to make sure folks are safe. That's what we do have, ADA compliant pathways on the edges. That's always to encourage folks to cross there, you know, particularly in areas that have high traffic or areas where traffic can increase in speed. We want to make sure folks are not caught unawares, and traffic knows to expect folks at those edges. I understand the practicality, you know, folks are going to like to cross where it's convenient, but we do, you know, as a matter of, you know, when we put these things together, encourage folks to take the safest path, even if it's not the closest or the most convenient.
And I know Peter's next, but Christine, are you responding directly to something Alfonso was?
Peter, if you don't mind, I'm not jumping in front of you. I just wanted to maybe I'm wrong, but Eugene, are you talking about during construction or are you talking about like the final product? Because I thought that one of the concerns, like it sounded like your concern was more once these medians are completed, people are not going to be able to walk over them as easily as they would if it was just grass.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you have any plans to include like pedestrian access across the medians or at the corners of these
believe I'll let me come back to that. I believe we have just maintenance of whatever current pathways there are. I don't think we're removing any pathways, but let me confirm for you.
Yeah, I would just say, like, if you're gonna put like perforated pipe in the middle of the median that people aren't going to be able to walk, or like rocks, maybe not do it in that section so where people could still cross over there. I understand that, like, you want to encourage people not to cross over in that area, but it's just not realistic. I think people are going to do it regardless because the walk to the next crosswalk is like really, you know, out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like, again, and by the way, it wasn't myself, it was some other folks internally at DP that actually did the design, which is why some of the details I need to brush up on, of course. But from what I recall, yeah, I mean, and either way, if there were to be any sort of part of the system of a pipe or something like that that goes through a walkway, obviously it wouldn't be at the surface, right? So it would go under. So I doubt the designer, you know, interrupted a currently existing path of travel just because of an underground pipe. We don't technically do that typically. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, or like the rocks, the perforated. I don't want to take up all the time. So like, but what I mean is like the landscaping in that area right now is just flat, so people could easily just walk over. Like, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to see like the rocks, or maybe at least for there to be a path so people could still do it without having to like climb over stuff. That's all.
Okay, I'll note it.
Yeah, thank you.
And then next we have Peter and then Edward.
Hey, great. Thank you, Edgar, and thank you, Commissioner, very much for that presentation. One of the long-standing concerns and requests from this committee, and I understand it may not have been fully communicated in the past, but it's always been part of our budget priorities and our community needs statements, is the need for additional bike and pedestrian facilities along Union Turnpike, particularly this area running alongside Forest Park. And so we see this project, and I think I know the answer to it, and the design's already fairly well along, but are there any opportunities in doing this work to provide pedestrian and bike facilities to improve access to the park? And I'm very glad to see that Al and Craig are here, because I very much want you overhearing this, because if not this project, or if, then this remains a priority corridor for us to improve pedestrian and bike accessibility into the park. I just wondered if this is an opportunity, if there's going to be all this work being done down the median, to put in green infrastructure pathways that can be used by pedestrians and cyclists, with porous materials, so that you still have drainage while still providing a safe pathway out of traffic for people to move along here and gain access to the park. So I wanted to make sure that was something that the parties were looking at.
Okay, Peter, and I'm sorry, my connection's a little funny right now, but you're talking about, are we taking into consideration porous pavement and other methodologies to allow for folks to have accessibility and walkable pathways? Did I get that right?
And yeah, and if not, is it too late to build these type of facilities into the plan to try and meet some of our longstanding requests and needs to the city for such infrastructure?
Sure. I can check on, possibilities and time frame. My understanding is that this has been going on before I got here, so it's been in the play for a while. My understanding is that the design and sort of like the layout is pretty set, but I can check on sort of where we're at and like what's possible. I mean, unless Andres or
I
Albert want to jump in on that.
I could, yeah. There's actually a pretty direct response to that, which is the design. It not only is the design done, but the construction contractor, construction manager, et cetera, everything's procured. We already have notice to proceed, so all the items for the work, everything that's been designed, everything that Alfonso shared earlier on the screen, all of those things have already been bid out, and there's already items in the contract. So there's no real mechanism that I can think of currently to add anything to this particular project anyway. But I see Al has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Andres. Is it fair to say, I mean, my understanding is that this project followed a different capital path than your typical like DDC contract. Like this is more of an in-house DEP operation. We're familiar, at the DOT end, this work was done, I believe, on Craig, what was it, Winchester and Hillside Avenue previously, and that it just followed a different path, Peter, than your typical capital project, where DOT would, have the opportunity to add scope to a larger reconstruction type project. So in this case, I don't think, and Andres, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not changing the geometry of the roadway. You're working within the existing curb lines purely for the the rainwater retention and beautification goals.
I believe so. Yeah. There isn't really any reshaping of the roadway, right? To my knowledge, yeah.
So in that sense, Peter, while DEP couldn't add bike infrastructure to this scope, it would not preclude DOT from doing an in-house project. The one thing I would ask for would be, and I know you put it into community board budget request items and whatnot, but I think having a fresh letter from the committee and the board saying that you want DOT to explore, especially with the Queensway, on the horizon, to explore connections. I think that makes a ton of sense.
That does, and as long as we know that this project doesn't prevent future work, then that's somewhat reassuring. But okay, that's great. Thank you, Al.
Awesome. Then we have Edward, followed by Kevin and Eugene.
Good. Hello?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Yes, I'd like to know, when is this project supposed to start?
As far as the official start of the project, it's technically already started, but the physical work takes a little bit of time to actually start because of numerous things. You know, we have to get some like approvals, subcontractor approvals, permits, material submittals reviewed and approved by by us, my team, etc. So again, technically the work, I believe this one started. We have order to commence work for this one. I think it was April 21st or something. I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, it's April. It's a 1-year contract, 365 consecutive days, and it started officially, yeah, April 21st. So my anticipation currently, we're still on the early stages, talking with the contractor, as I mentioned, with permits and so on. So my current estimation, at least from my level, my team might have more detail, but I would say boots in the ground. I could expect maybe end of next month, beginning of July, something like that.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Edward. And now Kevin.
Thank you so much for being here. This might be an off-topic question, but are there any current or future plans to prevent any oversized trucks from traveling along Union Turnpike, running into the parkway overpasses, where the height of the truck might exceed the height of the overpass, and they end up jamming up traffic?
Okay, you're talking specific to
I think Kevin might be. Are you
trucks that
speaking
would be in
about
the
the
construction of this,
underpass?
or otherwise?
Just the along Union Turnpike. I was not specific to your presentation, but to some of the work that DOT might be doing to prevent oversized trucks from entering Union Turnpike and ending up not being able to continue along their route. You can take the question back if it's not if
Yeah,
you're not able to answer it.
I'd say I don't think DEP's project would do anything to preclude or change, you know, truck mobility. You know, if it when it comes to truck enforcement, DOT has a freight mobility unit that employs a lot of different strategies. And, you know, a lot of what you're talking about is enforcement, and you know, also signage to let you know, and also working with some of uh, the GPS, the geospatial companies who operate, you know, Waze and Google Maps to let trucks know where they can and cannot legally be. So there is a, you know, a robust push to really focus on you know, legal truck activity. But I don't think the DEP project would have any impact on that.
No,
Happy to talk about specific locations that of concern though.
thank you for the info.
Thank you, Kevin. And next up is Eugene.
Hey guys, are there going to be trees that are getting removed because of this project? And do you know the number of trees?
I don't know the number off the top of my head. I believe that there are a handful of trees that were maybe meant for transplant. I'm sorry, because of what Alfonso said, there's like 3 concurrent medium projects going on at the same time. So
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
I
like
have that.
30. There's like 30 or maybe more trees along that median, and they're like pretty substantially, like they're pretty substantial trees. Like the pictures that you guys show in the project are like the only areas that don't have trees, and those trees do a lot to like reduce the noise that comes to our homes from the roadway, not only from Union Turnpike but also from the Jackie, you know, the noise from trucks, and just like you know, we don't want to see trees being taken down. There's also really no substantial flooding in the areas, like the main areas of the project. The area that I referenced is like at the very end of the project. I actually don't even know if the project If it's possible, I'd love to go over the maps, if that's okay, like together, if you're able to pull them back up, and I can show you exactly the flooding area that I'm talking about.
Sure.
I don't think the medians that are being worked on are ever see standing water. They're higher than the other parts of the roadway, and the only area that sees flooding is there's a turn towards the end of the project which I don't think is being worked on at all. So to me, it's not like gray infrastructure that's being replaced by green infrastructure. It's like a green median with lots of trees that does like really good stuff for our community that's being replaced by piping and other infrastructure. It just doesn't seem like anyone came out here and like actually looked at the roadway before commencing this plan. So yeah, I'd love to look at the map and kind of point out the areas that I'm talking about in terms of flooding. And then in terms of trees,
Sure.
yeah, like I that's my primary concern is I really would not like to see any of the large trees be removed. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. And
So
well,
we can go
Alfonso,
back
while you
and check on. I'm going to pull it up right now, but yeah, we can go back and check on the trees. I know that's always a concern for folks. We had another project that we had in another part of the district that included replantings and all that. So we can go back and check on specifics on if there are removals, how many, what's the plan for the trees specifically. But here, let me share the map real quick. Let's see.
Yeah, I see the comment. Like every tree that will be removed the city will work with parks to plant new trees. Like I like the trees that are there, right? Like they're there
Sure.
because they protect. They do a good
Can you
job.
see?
Yes,
Can you see
I
the
can.
map?
Yes.
Okay. So which area are we talking about?
So the ponding, if you look at 71st Road, 71st
Yes.
Drive, the ponding only
It's right here.
happens, on where 71st Drive is? That turn?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
So it's that turn, but it's on the roadway side. I mean, sorry, it's on the park side.
Okay.
So it's just
So we're talking between 71st Drive and 72nd Avenue.
yes,
turn?
I would say more like between 71st Road and 72nd Avenue, but just on the side of the park, not on the side of the median.
Got it.
On that, it ponds towards that side of the roadway, like towards the park. There's like a divot there, and that's where most of the flooding is. In other areas, like the median is higher than areas of the roadway, and other areas of the median really don't see any ponding or flooding.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and the medians are all green. They're not like cement medians. They're grass medians with lots of beautiful trees. Like if you guys drive down Union Turnpike, you'll notice like an area that just has like a line of really beautiful trees along the median, and it would just be really sad to see those go.
Okay. Well, we'll verify.
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate, but we'll take that concern back and we'll verify and we'll get an answer to the CB.
Awesome. Thank you. Some of the trees are also just recently planted. Like a year ago, the Parks Department just planted a bunch of new trees on the median.
I do have some input on that, Alfonso, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I just like to make a distinction. I know that in the presentation when Alfonso you were sharing it, it's kind of it's easy to not realize kind of the distinction, and I understand why the thought would be, why is this being put in places where ponding isn't being noticed? But I think the important distinction is these projects for the projects meant for combined sewer overflow reduction, they don't necessarily always have to be placed in a location where it floods, right? So it's more than anything, you redirecting the water and intercepting the water in areas or locations that, as Alfonso expressed in the presentation, that have the good soil that will allow for that infiltration. So it's very easy to get confused. Why are we we have 11,000 rain gardens throughout New York City, 5 boroughs, right? The rain gardens are not necessarily placed in locations where the location would flood. They're placed in locations where the soil is conducive to infiltration, and within a certain area of the sewer shed, that where the sewer would now outfall to a combined sewer overflow location, and so we're trying to reduce that. So yeah, long-winded answer as to why you won't see always a location of ponding as the location where you would put green infrastructure for this particular type of
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think like practically, if you look at the project and the road, and you replace the medians, you're still going to see ponding in that one area that like is really the only hazard in terms of like it creates ponding. Then the road freezes over, drivers end up like that's really, for me, that's the primary concern around ponding specifically here. I don't think that, but I hear what you're saying.
And then the other thing, Eugene, that I wanted to address as well is because it might have not been clear when I said it. It does sound like we just whoever internally designed the project didn't take into account the trees, but we most certainly do coordinate with the Department of Parks. And because the design, this does happen a lot, the design happens a certain amount of time before the actual construction is ready to begin, right? So as you were saying, sometimes there's a brand new tree when you're in the middle of design, and then when it's time for construction, the tree is now grown and it's now a healthy, robust tree. We met with Parks. I made sure personally that we brought Parks out to all 3 of these medians not even 2 months ago, to make sure that they would let us know what trees would be okay to transplant, which ones would be okay to remove, and the ones that are established and sizable, Parks wouldn't let us remove them anyway. So I'm pretty sure a lot of those trees that you're mentioning, when I was talking to my contact at Parks, I'm pretty sure a lot of them are just they're just going to be protected. There's no way to remove a fully grown tree like that.
Yeah. I would just love to see the trees stay. As much as possible, even the younger ones.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Sure. No, and like that's why we'll even though we've had these conversations, hearing the concern, we want to just double check with our folks and give you a solid answer. So we'll do that.
All right. Does anyone else have questions for our DEP or DOT folks here before we let them go on their merry way and enjoy some part of the night? Oh, I see, Pedro, your hand is up.
Let's keep the questions though to at least this section of roadway, not otherwise in the community. That'll have to be another meeting.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just curious. Are you guys gonna be digging up the roadway at all, or is it just a median?
It should just be the median, plus some small amount into the road. I don't expect full road closures, and I don't think DOT even would allow that for such a main thoroughfare. But we shouldn't, other than having to install formwork for like the curbs that we're going to be installing that are missing from the median. That's, I don't know, maybe a couple of feet into the roadway from the very edge of the median. But other than that, no actual digging up of the whole street now. Shouldn't be.
Thank you.
Andres, on that point, the median for the service road on the north side, there are segments that are concrete median that are kind of worn away, totally deteriorated. It's within the scope of work, but it's within the project area, but I don't know if it's within your scope of work.
I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll touch base with Alfonso.
I see, Christine, your hand is up.
I just wanted to mention one thing before we finish this conversation. And Al, the intersection of Metro and Union, when you guys did that project and you said that DEP was going to do one portion of it, I just want to know, is this the project that's part of, or is it a different project? I know you said it was going to be a DEP capital project and they were going to take over part of that median work right at the corner. I'm just wondering if this is that project or if there's another project in the pipeline.
No, that's my understanding that this was the project that had been communicated over to our project team at that point, which is why we didn't do additional concrete work on that quadrant of the intersection.
Okay.
Yeah, and Alfonso, that was before your time in your position, so I'm happy to run through that with you for full awareness.
Thank you.
All right, Eugene, is that from before, or you still have questions?
Yeah, no, it's just another question. I'm sorry. There's like larger medians and there's also smaller medians. Are the smaller medians also getting done? Because there's like a service road between the main roadway and there's that's where the smaller medians are. I'm just curious if those are included.
Yeah, I believe
Let's
those are the
look
ones
real
where the
quick.
project. Yeah, but if you're gonna
Sure.
pull up the plans,
Yeah,
Alfonso, it's
show.
fine.
Yeah. And sorry, my connection is very choppy, so I hope you're hearing me okay. All right, can you see the screen?
Yes.
There it is.
Great. So going backwards, you see that the areas that are highlighted include.
Yep.
So you see like the it's on there's work that's going to be done on both sides. There, going all the way to the end. So it's the whole extent. And I believe these
Okay.
are the ones that you're talking
Smaller.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, the smaller medians are going to be included.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Is there like a point of contact for the DP, like someone on the ground? Like if there's additional small concerns or anything that the community board or residents want to share, is there someone that we can get in touch with?
Yeah, I would say that's fortunately that now that we have this role, that's what I'm here for. So if there's anything just directed to me, what I always say is include the leadership of the community board. So just CC Heather and Christine just so that they have awareness. And we, like I said, we speak constantly. I'm waiting for them to give me a chair in their office. I talk to them so much. So
Awesome.
yeah, so just
Thank
let
you.
me, just send it to me. And again, it's queensdep@dep.nyc.gov. Use that for this. Use that for issues that you're having relating to the space of, the agency in Queens. That's what we're here for. So
Yeah, thank you. I might just like follow up with some questions around the trees and stuff like that. Thank you.
that's fine. Like I say, I never mind a trip to the district because there's plenty of places to support local small businesses along Metropolitan and
we could take it's where the medians are. That's the start of the horse trail. So it's a beautiful walk in Forest Park as well.
Oh, I've spent a lot of time in Forest Park. It's this, we're lucky to have these green oases in the borough.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, does anyone else have any questions? Ideally, not too many more, just because we have a few things to go through today.
The board looks clear. So thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you, Andres and Al and Greg. Really appreciate you all taking the time to come out and talk to us. And we'll follow up, Al, about Union Turnpike. We thought it had already been put in writing, but we'll get a fresh letter out once the committee talks about it, and hopefully.
Great. Thank you all for the time. I know you guys have a packed agenda, so we're here when you need us.
Thank you, Alfonso and team, and we hope you folks enjoy the rest of your night.
I already have. Are you kidding me? This is great. I could do this all day. See y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
All right. Appreciate everyone's participation in that part of our meeting, and of course the presentation by our colleagues. And the next bit of the next item on the agenda is the Austin Street Open Streets. So for this, I did send some PDF consolidating a bunch of materials that our fellow board member Pedro distributed, because he'd like for you folks to be as educated as possible on this vision he has with this group that he's formed. So I'm going to open up the floor to Pedro to talk about his project. And of course, if you need me, Pedro, to share anything on the screen, or you want to share anything on the screen from the stuff I distributed, please do so. And so, yeah, take it away, Pedro.
Thank you, Edgar. So yeah, if I'm not sure if everyone got to see the documents that Edgar was referring to, but if not, the documents were mostly letters of support from the community, over 230, I believe, residents in the community, and two of the businesses on the block itself, and two residents that actually live on the block itself as well. And by the way, the block that we're talking about is 71st Avenue, where the Boston Market used to be. It's kind of a sweetery now, to where the Shake Shack is. So it's one block. And the open street, the application at the moment, it is for every Saturday, Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. From July up until August. Sorry, not August, Halloween. And the idea of an open street, for those not familiar with, the program, it is essentially a way for certain aspects of the street to become temporary pedestrian plazas. So the idea is that we will be inviting, of course, community organizations. We already have been talking to several, and the businesses themselves on the street itself. So you can think of it as similar to like the Austin Street Fair, except there's not going to be vendors coming in from outside the community. It is mostly the community itself. We have already done a lot of outreach to the businesses on the block itself, so we have the 2 letters of support that Edgar shared. However, in addition to that, we have been talking to the businesses on the block as well as around the block. The 2 letters are really more for the application itself. And when talking to all of the businesses, we have gotten overwhelming support. Overall, we reached out to about over 25 businesses on the street, and they said, of course, several. They all had different reasons why they supported. Some of them actually wanted to have something on the street, like the 71st on 71st Road. There's an acupuncture place. He wasn't interested on giving massages in order to, of course, just get more visitors for his place. And there were others like the Combi who wanted to put out more tables in order to invite. And of course, these are like free public tables for anyone to use in order to invite more people in and have it probably look more like what you will see in Mexico or in a place like that has these kinds of places. And then again, everyone had different ideas on what they wanted to do with the space. And of course, we have, like I mentioned, we have a lot of local community organizations that want to be part of it. Like the first green team wants to do something with composting. I would love for us to do something with the trees as well, because I know that they do things with the trees, and we got new trees on Austin Street, so that'll be great. And the stadium has also reached out and was possibly wanting to do something in the future with us. Now, quick disclosure: we applied for the open street. We were not given the permit, so we are not getting the permit right now. But the ask is that the community board still support the idea of the open street for next year. But this year, we are in the process of applying for a temporary open street that's going to be happening at the same time, so 11 to 5, from July until Halloween. But it's going to be once a month. But that is not what the ask is for. I apologize for that. That was news that happened after we had already sent over the request to the community board. I will take any questions that anyone has about the project. Oh, and by the way, we're calling the day Austin Day, which I believe I mentioned in the community board meeting last week.
Hey, Joe, can I just, for clarification, are you looking for support for this year for, the Austin Day or days, or are you looking for support for next year?
I am looking for support in general, I'm looking for support for the open street between 71st Avenue and 71st Road on Austin Street. Because I know in the past, the community board has supported the idea of open streets, but not anything specific. So that's what I'm looking for right now, just that open street between 71st Avenue and 71st Road. It just happens to be that we're going to be delayed by a year, it sounds like it, unless we can get the permit retroactively, which I've heard it happen sometimes, where DOT, after doing a trial, DOT comes back and says, actually, never mind, we're just going to give you the permit. So we're just asking for support for the open street on Austin Street between 71st Avenue and 71st Road.
This proposal,
support for,
this year,
sorry.
this proposal, I'm sorry, Peter. This proposal for this year and next year, even though this year it would be 1 day or 2 days, is in the same portion. So next year, with what you're hoping for to get sort of like the weekends, right? That would be the same portion of road, correct?
Yes.
That doesn't change. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so,
But
so what you're looking for is just an overall approval of the concept, regardless of whether it is this summer for 1 or 2 days or next summer for the entirety of the weekend. Am I correct in understanding that?
that is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear because I was confused, and I was
uh,
hoping that I'm not the only one that was confused. Otherwise, there's something wrong with me.
yeah.
But thank you.
No, it is definitely confusing. And DOT is trying to work with us. That's why they're trying to give us this trial period. And we were hoping to, of course, get the permit itself, and we that's why we asked the community work for. But then some news came out. They said that they couldn't give us a permit, but they wanted to work with us via a SAPO project, a SAPO permit, which for those of you know is essentially a block party. It's kind of what you apply for if you want a block party. But the idea is that we will be trying it out once a month throughout the summer and fall, and then next year coming in full force. I believe there were more
I see
questions.
Howard had his hand up first, and then we'll go with, or actually, Christine, did you want to add something to that, to what Heather, or, okay.
I'll
So
wait
Howard,
I'll wait my turn. That's okay. Thank you, Edgar.
okay. So Howard,
Yeah, okay. The question is to Pedro. I have a question. What about the concerts? That's the question. They have them in the summer. That's the question. Is it going to interfere with the concert weekend or not? That's the question I want to know.
Yes. So thank you for the question.
You're welcome.
We will not be running on the concert days. Luckily, most of the concerts happen during the weekday. There's actually only like 3 days through the entire season, at least this year. I don't know about next year, but this year, there's only 3 days where the concerts actually happen during the weekend. So we will not be running those days just because we couldn't really get the 112 to agree to an idea that I have, which is to during those days take over even more space over Austin Street. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But no, we will not be
Thank
running
you.
those days.
Thank you.
all right, Niall.
Yeah, I had a question. You mentioned that you applied for the DOT permit for this year. If I'm understanding correctly, did DOT give a reason why they didn't allow the permit for this upcoming summer?
They felt that let me. I will say no. Essentially, they didn't give a direct reason for why it happened, but I can make assumptions that it may have to do with us failing to get one of the letters of support from one of the politicians. But they were not clear, to be honest. At the end of the day, I was told that that may happen, and that is the reason why we're doing this trial in order to try to get more support. Even though I feel like we showed a lot of support from the community, the businesses, and everyone else. They just felt a little skittish, I guess you could say, and they didn't feel like maybe it was okay to give the full open street right to this year. So they'll say maybe we can do next year after doing this trial period.
Thank you.
Then I got Christine, Eugene, and Saba. Or Christine, Eugene.
So I think John Dershevsky is in that mix.
Oh, I see. Okay, he's the host, got it. Okay, then John.
Two things. DOT is still on the call, so I don't know if they want to comment on any of this. If not, we're not putting you on the spot. We didn't ask you to come and speak about this, but just an FYI. The second thing is my recommendation, and you can just take it for what it's worth, but I don't know that the community board should be pre-approving something or saying we're in support of something next year, just because a lot of things could change by next year. So if the committee wanted to support, say, Boston Day, or say that that you're in favor of open streets in our community in general, I just don't know if I would specifically approve something for next year, just not knowing, all of the factors that could affect it in the community. That would just be my suggestion.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. Since you called me out, I'll speak up. But appreciate Appreciate Pedro and his diplomatic way of putting things. I think the Open Streets unit had concerns about, you know, traffic issues specific to, you know, event days and just the overall street grid, you know, and potential issues there. And the idea was, why don't we work with the applicant on scaling it back a little bit and trying to see how it works on a smaller scale as opposed to a blanket, you know, every weekend type of approval. So that was the general idea, and I think, you know, that unit is still looks forward to working with the applicant on doing that. I know that they've spoken to Pedro, and you know, maybe not every weekend, but once a month is still on the table for this year. And I think if I'm reading between the lines, if the committee is still supportive of that, I think we can get there.
Thank you for that. Then we got John. Thank you, Albert. John,
You're
go
muted.
ahead.
You're muted, John.
Yeah, John. If,
Okay, I was
yeah.
sorry I muted myself. After I finish, you may wish I had. But I just want to also, I think I see where Christine is coming from here. I think this in many ways, by doing it on a test basis, is probably the best way to quite literally test it out and get a sense to see what the kinks may be, whether, for example, the block chosen may be the best block. There may be a better way to deal with it or not. I'm, you know, and certainly, certainly not take, you know, if we were to hold off for something for next year until, say, the fall, there'd certainly be enough time for DOT to consider it, for some negotiation to occur, things like that, which I think would be fine. I mean, I think probably one of the reasons why we probably didn't get every, you know, it as broadly as possible this year was the timing. It was very close to when we would want to see it. One concern I really, not a concern, but a real question is, based upon the current parameters of the project, how exactly would you see the traffic flow that would be interrupted by this? I mean, how would the cars in both directions have to be directed? And does anybody see any concerns regarding what would happen there?
Yes, so we actually thought long and hard about which block specifically to do. I don't know if you guys remember, some of you were with us, but we had in Austin Street, what do you call it, field day, where essentially we went out and measured all of the sidewalks between Woodhaven, no, sorry, Yellowstone and Askin Avenue. And we essentially just went through with rulers and just measured every single sidewalk. And what we determined was that, because as some of you know, what we have been pushing for is a study of Austin Street with pedestrian safety and comfort as the priority. And the idea, and essentially the biggest discomfort that we have found is the narrow sidewalks on Austin Street. They're not ADA standard. They're very, very narrow, and it's just not great. They're also not, some of them are not in great condition. So when we were trying to determine this open street idea, we decided that to pick this block for several reasons. One, it is the block with the narrowest sidewalks. The one across the street on across 71st also has very narrow sidewalks, but that had a bus when we made the decision. Now it doesn't have a bus. So, you know, we could have picked that one, but, you know, it is what it is. So that had the narrow sidewalks. So that was a strong indication for that. The second reason we picked it had to do actually with traffic flows. We did a little bit of an experiment where we essentially tried to track where the cars that are on Austin Street are actually going. And we essentially determined that there's two types of vehicles that enter that corridor. One is people going to the street itself to park, stop, drop off, pick up, etc. And then the other is just people driving through. Essentially, just people on Askin coming from Union Turnpike, trying to get all the way to 67 Road, and they don't want to get on Queens Boulevard because Boulevard has a bunch of traffic lights, so they get on Austin Street because Austin Street has no traffic lights between Union Turnpike all the way to 71st Road. I'm saying this as someone who actually we kind of ran that experiment, but then I also met some people, including my neighbor, who actually admitted to me that he does that, and I was like, okay, so I know who these people are now. And that kind of traffic doesn't really help anyone. It doesn't help the businesses. It doesn't help the area. It's just people trying to get from point A to point B who are just avoiding Queens Boulevard, which should be the street that people are on. So we picked this block not only for the sidewalks, which was of course big priority. And also of course is that intersection 71st Avenue, Austin Street is the worst intersection. So by picking this block, we're calming that intersection, but we're also reducing the amount of through traffic that goes through the street and calming that entire eastern segment of Austin Street as well. By essentially saying, if you're going to be entering the street, you're kind of there because you want to be in the street. Like you're driving there, you're coming from there, you're trying to do business, you're trying to doing something. You're not just moving around. So our hope with this trial, of course, is that we can prove that that is the case by essentially making north-south traffic on 71st Avenue smoother. Because as I'm sure some of you know, one of the things that kills traffic on 71st Avenue and Austin Street is the turns. Immediately anyone wants to make a turn, everything stops. So if you remove the turns and you just allow north-south traffic, then traffic should flow a lot smoother. Now there were, like I mentioned, there were other reasons why we picked this block beside those two. Such as, for example, it was one of the blocks that we found that we had the most support for this idea from previous efforts that we have had when trying to interact with the businesses. But definitely the sidewalk issue, the intersection calming issue, and then as well as the through traffic issue were kind of like some of the main priorities.
Okay, I just want to add, just in addition to the narrow sidewalk, I think that that area tends to have more of those cellar grills that kind of jut out. And as one who is over 200 pounds myself and also has a 200-pound wheelchair, I certainly avoid going over them, and it does create. It probably is, it helps my driving skills, but it's a bit of an obstacle course. So I could see that as a additional reason. For some reason, they really have a lot of them on that block. So
Yeah,
thanks, Pedro.
yeah, when we were doing that field day where we were measuring the sidewalk, we did find several spots where between a tree bed and then one of those grates that you mentioned, between those two, you literally had like less than a foot.
Oh yeah, no,
So
I always have to kind of cross my fingers when I'm crossing some of those, and it also does at times, require me to kind of stop and let other people go by and things like that. I mean, it's a headache, but I can understand that point. Thanks.
Thank you.
And before we go to more hands, thank you, John. I wanted to bring up Kevin's comment in the chat. Would it be possible to bring different recycling events to Austin open streets that include paper shredding, e-recycling, etc., backpack giveaway, baby boxes, and diapers giveaway?
Yes, and yes. In fact, like I mentioned, the Forest Hills Green Team has been a really great partner. They've been helping us out with some of the, essentially just like trying to get some funding as well as trying to get some programming. And one of the things that they wanted to do is, of course, the composting, which they always want to do. But composting is just one kind of, it's actually recycling kind of thing. One of our members did bring up recycling, which I love the idea of because I hate having to haul all the way over to Best Buy to drop off my batteries. So it would be great if we could have something in the community itself. And yeah, essentially any event, because that's the other thing, by the way, it's all free. Like, so if you have any event that you would want to run, just send me an email and I will put you in the schedule. And all you have to do is just show up and tell me what you need. We're definitely of course, be giving priority to the businesses on the street, with, of course, a priority to the neighborhood organizations and everything else. But if you can think of something that you want to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Pedro. And then Eugene and Peter.
I'm sorry, my hand was still up from before.
Oh, okay, Peter.
Okay. Okay, great. I almost forgot what I was going to ask. Actually, for Al, it's kind of for you. So just in terms of traffic management issues, and also to kind of speak to Pedro's point, which is eliminating just all the pass-through traffic, which causes a lot of problems in all parts of our neighborhoods. But if we do this, would there also be the opportunity to place signage at Baskin, making it clear that there wasn't going to be through traffic that day? Because I could foresee without that signage, folks will still do what they normally do, and then they get all the way down to this point, and they're going to start circulating. And the next thing you know, we're going to get all these complaints saying that this is awful, it doesn't work, when perhaps a sign at Askin saying no through traffic, Queens Boulevard this way, might save us a bit of drama and allow this to play out at a bit more reasonable reception.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's a great point. And I think the unit would work with the partner to deploy that type of temporary signage. And then, as it, hopefully in the future, as it becomes more of a fixture, then perhaps we could explore, more permanent type signage to accomplish that same goal. I think it's a very fair point.
Thank you so much for saying that, Al. Because that was actually one of my worries with the Sapo idea versus the OpenStreet idea. Because with the OpenStreet idea, people will eventually learn what's going on, but with once a month, people are gonna forget. So thank you so much, because I did have that idea. I just didn't know if that was something that we would be allowed to do.
Yeah, I think as long as it was coordinated with the unit, we were, aware of it, and the precinct was aware of it. A sign, zip tied, that could be removed at some point just to avoid confusion. It makes a ton of sense.
Okay. Do you think that would that be Burkina's team as well, or?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm working with Burkina and.
Burkina. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you could tell her it was discussed at the transportation committee, and I could speak to her as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, anything to make it flow better is, obviously a great idea. And to Peter's point, avoid the complaints.
Okay, that's great. Good. That's good to see that as possibilities. Then my other comment was just going to be, Pedro, I understand the desire to get a yes on the open street going forward into next year, but I think it does make some sense what Christine was saying, and it also dovetails a bit better with the way DOT is looking at this, to kind of consider this as a pilot and see if we can approve this pilot. And then hopefully this now provides the argument for why we should next year approve the application for, so I would be comfortable doing that and would recommend it.
Okay. Yeah, that is 100% fair. This was kind of, I don't want to say last minute. It just happens to be the way things line up. But it definitely makes sense. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So essentially, the ask will change from the OpenStreet every week to an OpenStreet trial every month. It will be the last Sunday of the month, with the exception of, I need to find the date. Apologies. There is one Sunday where we conflict with the concert. Do we need the date right now, or can we just say? Okay. Okay, yeah. There's one day when we conflict with the concert, so we might have to move it one Sunday ahead or one Sunday later.
Got it. Okay.
And
Maggie puts in the chat that it would be good to see the traffic flow plan as part of the shared plan. Is there such a thing as a traffic flow plan that's part of this application? Or it's just
That was not something that was asked of us. No, that's not part of the application. No.
Because this is Maggie. I'm the one who put that question.
yeah.
Yeah, because thinking about if you're blocking and it's going to be an open street and it's like in the midst of a two-way traffic street. I live on this block, so thinking about if we don't have a plan of seeing how, even if you have the blockage, how we expect the cars, because it will be a loop. For anyone who gets stuck in that loop, they'll be going round and round and honking and everything. So it would be good to see what the traffic plan would be to avoid that kind of nuisance.
I can show you something. 1 second.
I think this is part of the reason why I made that suggestion about the sign at Ascan, so that people who don't otherwise need to be in that space don't come there and then get stuck in a loop. They can exit out to Queens Boulevard back at Ascan and stay out of the area altogether.
Can I share my screen? And maybe this.
Generally allow people to do that.
You don't allow people to do that? Okay. Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, why I'm saying that we have to know at what point are we putting those signs, because I think we may need multiple signs, because there are multiple entry points that will lead to the loop.
Yes. So this is something
good point.
I was working on. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes. So this is something that I was working on mostly because I was trying to visualize what the traffic flow will be like when entering the street. But essentially, is this what you had in mind, Maggie?
Yeah, and then if we do have that written out, where do we put the signs to avoid cars looping and getting all stuck?
There'll probably be one here.
Two signs.
Sorry?
We need two signs. We need one at Ascan and Austin.
Or maybe here.
Need, Queens Boulevard and 72nd.
Queens Boulevard and 72nd. Yeah, right here.
Actually, it might be also good at 72nd and Austin. So that people know they need to turn out. They need to go to Ascan if they're leaving the area.
72nd, that is this one, right? Right here by the church.
Yeah. That's the one that comes down to Austin.
Yeah.
So it's already naturally leaves, so that's fine. But this one comes into the area.
Yeah.
So those folks need to know that if their next destination is outside of the area, they need to accomplish that using Ascan.
Do you think one will be near over here as well?
Yeah, I was gonna say think about Yellowstone as well for those who are looking to get to the other side.
Oh yeah. Yeah, though at least people coming from the Yellowstone side, they can at least exit out.
Yeah.
So it's the folks though who get past Ascan or come down on 72nd, they're the ones that'll be unsuspectingly stuck in a loop.
Yeah, in a loop.
Okay. Okay, I'll take notes of those locations. And we will work with DOT on seeing if we can put some sort of temporary signs on all those places.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. That was a good set of questions.
No, I live here, so I know the headache I would cause.
No, just
and
like
I drive
Eugene.
too.
Yeah, no, that's why this works. Like Eugene over on Union, that's why it's great that we come from all over the district. Awesome.
Agreed. Yeah, so I don't see any more questions, and
would you allow a request for a store poll then?
Yes. Yeah. I guess do I need a second for that? Or can I be your
Well,
second?
let me air what I'd like as a oh, Saba has a hand up though. Is that just a second?
I was just gonna second it.
All right. So yeah, so I would request a straw poll from the committee, Edgar, approving, providing, recommending that the board supports the application for the SAPO permits this year, and include among those the traffic plan that we just hashed out with Pitt. Yeah, I think that covers it.
Seconded.
Okay. So I guess with that, remind me, straw poll is one where I ask people to say aye. Is that the one?
Yeah, it's the I one.
Okay. So everyone who supports the motion, please say aye.
Unmute yourselves.
Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, it sounds like the ayes take it. So I'm going to write this in an email to Christine and Heather, and then hopefully this could be taken to the full board in June for a broader vote. So thank you, Pedro, very much.
Thank you so much. And I guess this goes as an invitation to the to Christine and the board in general. If you guys want to do anything on the street as well, like a tabling or as I believe Kevin said about the pepper shredding, just let me know, and I will definitely get you a spot. Not a table because I don't have tables. We don't have money. I'm sorry. We're working on that. We're trying to get some money.
I do just want to say something, Pedro, about the paper shredding and the e-cycling. It costs money. So that, the people that want to do it have to pay to like bring the truck there and stuff like that. So I just want people to understand that if you don't provide, if you don't end up having that, it's not because you don't want it. It's just because the people that provide it, have to pay for it. So.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, but we will not charge you. So there's that.
No, but we have to pay for the paper.
Yeah, I know. Just saying.
I could bring my shredder from the office with a really long extension cord.
As long as you don't tap into a DOT street light, Christine.
Yeah, we need like a.
No, it's gonna be a really long extension cord from the office.
You might be able.
Yeah,
You might be able to get an elected to sponsor it, maybe.
We could, but also the invitation goes out to the rest of the community. One idea, by the way, that I would like to do is there's this concept of the long table, where essentially we just get a long table and everyone gets together. And I know that there's the Breaking Bonds. I believe Anicia, you're part of that. That it would be great to have it on the street. Yeah, go ahead. I'm done. You're muted, Peter.
Sorry, I got excited. But we're like, everybody comes out to dinner. Like, everyone bring your meals, sit down, and we eat as a community.
Yes.
Kind of an idea.
I remember you also brought that up a long time ago.
Yeah, I love that.
That'd be a great idea.
That'd be brilliant.
All right. Thank you, Pedro.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna move on as expeditiously as we possibly can on to the budget. I know, Christine, you shared an update on how this process has changed, and I think for me and Peter, I think I guess in terms of the approach I took last time, I feel like it would still work if Peter and I are comfortable with prioritizing or opening up the prioritization to this group, like doing it here. Is that correct, Christine? If Peter and I are comfortable with that, you could just kind of prioritize here with everyone instead of just maybe me and Peter doing it offline.
Yeah, no, that's how. So in the past, we used to have you prioritize your priorities and submit them that way. So it's basically the same, except you're just going to separate it by agency. So you're going to prioritize DOT, you're going to prioritize MTA, whatever agencies you have budget priorities for. So you will still prioritize it in your committee. It's just that you will prioritize within the agency rather than comparing something from DOT to something from MTA. If that makes sense.
Total of 5 from any one agency, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll try to keep track of that with the spreadsheet.
Edgar, I think we can still kind of do it the way we've been doing it. And then what'll happen is, we might have our top 10, and then the top 5 DOT projects slot into the DOT list, and then any MTA projects up to 5 slot into the MTA. I don't even think we need to do separate lists. We can kind of just do our overall rankings and then let them fall in the top 5 into each of those buckets.
Cool, cool. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so the first thing I'll do, I'm gonna share my screen, but I know Kevin, you have a capital budget item. I know we already talked about capital, but Kevin, you have an additional capital budget item you wanted us to consider in this meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a good chance to. This is your chance to talk about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So, Chair Dimitriadis, DM Nolan, and committee co-chairs Vito and Alfonseca. I feel like I need a suit and a tie for these 2 proposals that I'm going to bring before the board. This is regarding the intersection on Queens Boulevard, also known as the Boulevard of Death, and Yellowstone Boulevard. The first proposal is one where I would like to propose to the committee members to give serious consideration, living here, driving here, knowing how dangerous that intersection is and how jammed up it can be, that we should explore the potential possibility of converting that intersection to a roundabout. Now I know that not everyone loves the roundabout. The New York State Department of Transportation had a message. This is regarding the facts of roundabouts. Traditional intersections have 24 pedestrian conflict points, 32 vehicle conflict points. Roundabouts have just about 8 each. They're a lot safer, 75% reduction in conflict points, which really translates to fewer car accidents, less pedestrian accidents and fatalities. The outcome that I think many of us have been working towards for years. And I see in the comment to repeat the intersection. It's on Queens Boulevard. And I want to say it's the Yellowstone Boulevard intersection. It's where, the Trader Joe's is. It's where you're trying to cross from one side of the neighborhood to the next.
This be it?
I just see your calendar, Peter.
Oh.
Now I see the map. Yes, that is what I am talking about. As someone who drives and to and from work, I've gotten caught in traffic, stopped in the middle of Queens Boulevard, just praying for my life that I make it across. My second proposal, because even if we were to explore this idea of a roundabout, it may be years or decades to come, is that I think we need immediate relief with a traffic crossing guard from 6 a.m. to midnight. I think there's no way around it in the morning, after work, peak hours. I feel like it's always peak hours. And I think we need someone who is a New York City personnel helping to direct traffic and ensure that pedestrians and cars can get from point A to point B safely. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. I see a few hands up. But I guess I'd like to. It's interesting. I don't know how in this, and maybe this is a Christine question before we take questions, but in this process, I guess would this process kind of would the budget process be a vehicle for doing this type of work? Like, is there a pre-process before it goes into the budget that we have to do? Like,
No, this would be an appropriate, if we wanted to, this would be an appropriate thing to put on our list of what we would like to see funding goes toward. I mean, that's exactly how the process works. The so that you know, this list that we're creating is the way that we communicate to DOT among other agencies the types of projects we'd like to see them do. Another way to approach this might be an and/or, is a request for a study. That probably should happen regardless. As kind of procedurally, mechanically, to get DOT to have a look at something, we have to specifically request it of them. Turnpike, Al asked us to do a fresh letter because that then puts it in their queue for actually looking at stuff. They're not mutually exclusive. I think it's an and. So we do it. Letter asking for a study, if that's what the board wanted to do.
and
Peter, I see Saba's hand up, and then I see Al Silvestri's hand up.
Al, do you mind going first, just because it's rare to have you here? So
Sure. So what I would say is this, and I commend Kevin because this has been a problem intersection for a long time, and Peter and Heather know that it's one of the most challenging intersections in all of Queens. It's incredibly long, and the signal timing is completely maxed out. And there's a tremendous amount of volume on Queens Boulevard and Yellowstone, and there's long pedestrian crossing distances, and it creates a very, very difficult situation. So I commend him for bringing this up. That being said, there is a future Queens Boulevard capital project that will include this phase. So I think putting this in through the budget requests makes sense to flag it for the capital unit in that way. But I would agree with Peter too that also a fresh letter asking for some novel approaches. What Kevin, just to speak directly to it, this would require a substantial traffic analysis that would have to be part of a capital project and would need funding, just to make sure that it works because of those geometric issues. But I think we have to think outside the box and see what's possible here, because it's such a challenging intersection. That's it. Yeah. Thank you.
thank you. Saba and Pedro.
I think Pedro was before me.
Then Pedro, please. Thank you.
Yes. I've never heard of a 12-lane traffic circle. So I feel like if we were to do a traffic circle, we would first need to shrink Queens Boulevard to like 1 lane, which it should do anyways, but that's another story. That said, I got to with Al in that situation. In that, I don't know if it makes sense to ask for a traffic circle specifically or a crossing guard. The crossing guard, I mean, we can't even get the first school, so I don't even know if so it's gonna happen for this. But we definitely should ask in the capital project for as part of the capital of the Queens Boulevard redesign, because it is pretty late. It's like 9.2 years late now. Supposed to be starting this year. We'll see. I don't know. We should definitely ask for a look into this intersection and all over to Queens Boulevard and explicitly request a systemic reduction in car volumes to the neighborhood. Because at the end of the day, we're not gonna there's no way for us to make this thing work and keep the same amount of cars going into it. There's just no way. Even if you make it work, more cars will just take over that space, and then you just have the same problem except bigger now. So if we are gonna be asking for like this specific intersection, we need to be explicit. We don't have to say traffic circle, of course. We can say we want this intersection fixed, but we need to be explicit and need to give them, I guess, the mandate that it is okay for them to significantly reduce the amount of capacity for cars in the area, not just necessarily Queens Boulevard, but the whole neighborhood. Because otherwise, it's not gonna work. We're just gonna end up be here for like until we die.
We're here till we die anyway.
All right, next up is Saba, and then Daniel.
Thank
And then
you.
John.
And Pedro said was I was hoping he would say would be traffic reduction, so I can now build up on it without building 2 points. But it's a very long intersection, and if we add it to the capital project list, I would want to ask to see if there would be something other than a traffic circle, because even I feel like if we reduce traffic, the amount of just yielding that happens in a roundabout is going to create traffic anyway. And in New York, and I know that like a roundabout, I think Kevin said was 12 points of interaction, right? Is that there's in the Hudson Valley near Woodbury, there's a diverging diamond that does 14 inner like touches of point. There's also one in Rochester. I grew up in that area when they put it in because it was at a bottom of a really bad intersection of 3 highways that used to be called the can of worms. And it was literally the can of worms in slang because cars would become worms. Like it was just not feasible. So I think I would want to ask DOT, which is really weird to ask because they're on this call, is that what would be, when they do a traffic analysis, what would be the best part for that intersection and the longevity of it? Because it also hits Jewel on one side. And so it's going to, I don't know, I'm just scared that it's even with traffic reduction, if they did it, a roundabout might actually cause more points of interaction because people might not be used to roundabouts. I know that they work in safety a lot, but usually when there's way less cars. So but I'm all for putting this on the capital list to find a fix for it. And it would be really cool if we got a traffic guard, but I would be really sad if this intersection got a traffic guard before the school did. So those are my 3 points. Thanks.
Just to, sorry, one quick thing. Oh,
We might be saying the same thing, so
you first.
we might be saying the same thing, but I'll put it in the chat. I don't want you to confuse the two. We wouldn't get a school crossing guard on Queens Boulevard. If anything, it would be closer probably to Russell Sage, which they need one there too. But we would essentially be asking for a traffic agent to direct traffic there, rather than a school crossing guard. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Different entity.
Next up, we got Daniel and then John. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I really love the idea of doing something with that intersection. I'm sure everyone has thought about ways to make it better. I'm a big fan of roundabouts. I just think that maybe that, again, with echoing what Saba and Pedro were saying, unless we address traffic volume, if we're not going to change the roadbed, I think that would require a substantial change to the surrounding buildings. That's just my thoughts. But what I was actually hoping, since DOT is on the call, was wondering if we can actually do something about the width of the traffic crossings. So I actually cross that street every day coming home from work. And I was just thinking, there's these metal fences, which I think are intended to stop like crossings at erratic places. But if there was a way to maybe lengthen, like the way they do in front of what used to be the IKEA in Rego Park, that crossing to get to the south side or to get from one side of Queens Boulevard to the other it's an enormously wide crossing. I was wondering if we could do something like that, incorporate that into the capital improvement, and then also where Yellowstone and 69th Road, excuse me, not 69th Road, Jewel Avenue and Yellowstone Fork, there's that weird kind of like carrot-shaped like paint that it's not really a crossing, but I've seen a ton of people cross there. I was wondering if that could also be addressed, like maybe pour concrete, make that a physical place where people can actually wait. Because I find that I'm crossing that and I feel like I've taken my life into my own hands. So I was just wondering if you can address that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Dan,
So what I can say is that the Queens Boulevard project team, both the in-house team and our capital folks, are looking at a bunch of different options for they're fully aware of the issues here, and a lot of that we tried to accomplish in the in-house project with the inclusion of the bike lanes and the pedestrian space. So once those medians, there also was I believe a median tip extension that was done as part of that project on the southeast corner. But agreed, it's not enough. Reducing the vehicular lanes in this area is very challenging. Um, I don't need to tell everybody here. I mean, Yellowstone Boulevard is a primary feeder to get over the Long Island Railroad tracks, and you're picking up tremendous volumes from Woodhaven Boulevard. And that's why, like, it's not just to Pedro's point. Yes, we need to reduce vehicular volumes, but Yellowstone just happens to be an area-wide feeder for multiple communities. It's not just Forest Hills. I'm sure people are aware of that, but I have to say it anyway. So I'm not sure I follow the point about the metal fencing. What what do you what do you mean about that?
I guess I just wanted to say that when you're crossing the street, I guess it feels like you're almost like directed into this very small area between Yellowstone traffic, like on your left, and then Queens Boulevard, which is like to your west, and you're traveling south, and you have this fence which kind of restricts where you like the space that you're like sort of directed through, sort of like an imaginary fence boundary. But I don't know if maybe that fence can be moved, like scaled back a little bit, and give just and maybe make the stopping distance for the cars to push it back a little bit. Thank you for the map. Yeah, so the stop line where your mouse is right now, if that could go back a little bit, like maybe a foot or two, just to extend that. I guess because that maybe that also secondarily addresses another problem where cars are sometimes stopped on the crossing itself, which it causes a problem for pedestrian flow and visibility. So if maybe you can push the stop line further back, I don't know if that's possible.
Daniel, you're saying that the crossing, the zebra crossing here,
yes,
the crosswalk, is too narrow.
Yes.
You would like to see it a wider so that it better matches up with the space that's available to pedestrians here.
I think you got it. Yeah. I don't know if that's possible. I'm just spitballing here.
We can certainly look at it. And I understand your point. A lot of the spillover vehicular traffic coming from different directions, you're right, gets stuck in the intersection, and then it gums up. It takes away time from the other signal phases, and it just creates this trickle effect where you have congestions and backup. specifically high peak periods. So anything that we can do to reduce, or increase visibility, you know, it's tough. I mean, just to give you an idea, when we did restrict, and I know Peter knows this, when we restricted that left turn to go westbound on Queens Boulevard from Yellowstone, um, we were, Craig and I were getting a ton of complaints from people saying, you know, there's no signage. How could you make us, how could I get a ticket for this? There's no signage. There were 13 signs that were installed, and people were like legitimately saying like they never saw a sign. We had a VMS board up, and it just goes to show like, there's a very myopic view to get through that intersection. A lot of it has to do with the congestion and people feeling like they're trapped and they have to get through. So, yeah, points taken. We're going to bring this back to the Capitol team as well.
So I have,
So
thank
if
you.
I just jump in, if I could just jump in here real quick, it just seems like at this point the best way to take Kevin's suggestion for that intersection is to go back to what Peter said at the top of this conversation. Because and the only reason I'm doing this is because I know that you guys also have expense priorities to get to tonight. Is that we ask as a part of our capital priorities for a study on that intersection, for a feasibility study. And Peter, I believe that's what you were asking for at the top of this conversation, correct?
Yeah, and I think the best way is for us to do a letter requesting a feasibility study.
Instead of putting it as a priority,
right. This way we don't have to. Yeah, see what that study comes back, and then we can propose funding it, whatever a solution might come out of it. And then this way we don't have to crack open the nut of our capital list that we've already voted on, and then we'd have to remove numbers. But if we do the letter, then that puts it on DOT's docket. And when keep in mind also, I like this idea, at least because it's thinking out of the box, like Al said. But roundabout doesn't always mean round. There's a couple ways to do it. There's even oval and ellipsoid type challenges. And Washington D.C. Is something to look at, because although Queens Boulevard is still bigger than most of their avenues, they do have a lot of multi-lane avenues intersecting multi-lane avenues, and they use roundabouts. So that might, and in fact, they have multi-lane avenues with service roads. I think I'm thinking of Connecticut Avenue maybe, or Massachusetts, but they have some things that are worth looking at as part of this. But yeah, that would be my suggestion. Let's do a letter requesting the study.
A letter gets us a faster turnaround too. Because budget priorities can sit there on the shelf for a long time. This actually gets it quicker. Now, I wouldn't say immediate. Let's be realistic, right? Because there's 10,000 things on the list ahead of us, but it gets us more of an immediate response than to throw it on the priorities.
Yeah,
I'm on board with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna take that route instead of adding as a capital budget priority. And then Kevin, with your traffic enforcement and NYPD traffic enforcement officer requests, maybe if that could maybe be a service request, I assume.
we can do a letter too on that, right? For a TEA agent to be assigned.
I can reach out to them and see if it's possible. I don't know what their requirements are, but I can reach out to them. It's not a problem. I will say that, at some point, if you could maybe put it on your expense request, like additional traffic enforcement agents in the community or something like that, that might help just prove that we really want them.
Since they're NYPD, would they be in our committee? I don't think you have
actually not with our new process. NYPD would fall under the Public Service Committee.
Yeah, so Kevin, you may have to route that ask to that committee.
Well, okay. Yeah, I think Heather is running that committee meeting, so maybe she could bring it to their attention.
Yeah, honestly, I'm here. I'll grab it, take it, run with it. That committee is basically myself, Salwa, and Effie, Zachary. So I can bring that suggestion. And Kevin, if you are interested in attending that meeting, once the meeting notice goes out, please let us know. We'll get you connected into that so you can talk about it in that meeting too. Does that work?
Sounds good. Thank you, board,
In the
for
meantime, I'll put in a request with traffic safety.
thank you for your consideration tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for the suggestion.
I just want to acknowledge that both John and Howard had their hands up as we were doing that whole conversation. So do either of you want to speak in opposition to us requesting a letter, sending a letter to DOT requesting a study?
I agree.
I
Yeah.
certainly would not object. I think that's a good idea. I had a couple of other things I wanted to say, but
Got the floor, John. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. No, I just wanted to, yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think there's some excellent ideas here. I think both going ahead with the letter that was said and really trying to use this to incorporate the best ideas into the capital plan once it does occur, I think is important. Certainly, I think the statement that was made regarding the to the extent that one can reduce the amount of space in which pedestrians would have to cross, I think is an important one, both looking toward the short run and certainly looking toward the long run with the capital plan. The one thing that I do have to caution about is, saying things about reducing overall traffic volume is something that is very easier said than done. And I think in order to terms of looking at this, we have to really think it through. The traffic is not going to go away. It's going to go and be diverted to other areas, which may cause all kinds of unforeseen consequences that, or even I would almost say easily foreseeable consequences that may impact streets that are far less equipped to deal with heavy traffic volume than Queens Boulevard and Yellowstone are. I'm not saying you don't deal with that and you don't approach it, but you're going to have to think this one through. You don't want to make a situation where, yeah, you get a little less traffic on Queens Boulevard, but you have horror stories on other streets. I mean, I've seen situations where they did reduce traffic on certain larger streets and the adjacent residential streets get flooded. So as I said, I think that when we go forward, I'm not saying we don't look at it, but I'm saying you got to think this one through because this could, really backfire badly if not handled, comprehensively enough. That's just my comment.
All right, thank you, John. And Howard, you anything to add, or is that just still your hand up agreeing to the?
No, this is for Albert, the New York City TOT, if he's still here. I have a question, Albert. On northbound, the north side, Queens Boulevard and 78th Avenue. And 2 days ago, 3 cars were parked by the bus stop, and we had a handicap came on the bus. We had to go on in the tree. I was wondering if we could put a no stopping, no parking sign there, only for buses only, and there would be all right if that's possible.
Howie, you said 78th Avenue?
And Queens Boulevard, the north side, by where the Q Garden subway station, where the Q45 going to be, the Q48, and
yeah,
I think it's already signposted
by the bagel store.
Isn't that whole side already a bus stop?
It is. What's been happening is there's some construction that they've been doing somehow related to the subway, and so it's taken up a chunk and it's messed up their whole.
Yeah, but the people put cars are parking by the stores, and there's only for buses can't get into the curb to get people on and off the bus. They have to go in the street.
Right. So that we're working with MTA regarding a damaged bus pad issue in that location. So Craig's actually been coordinating with that team and our citywide concrete unit to see what repairs are necessary, and it's actually taking some pretty significant engineering analysis because we don't want to damage the the station infrastructure below it.
I understand on that issue, but I'm saying right now, it's,
We'll stay on it, and we'll keep Christine at the board office updated.
yeah, okay, but I'm going to tell you that it's going to be a disaster on June 29th with the 48 there and the 45 and the 46 in the same location.
Understood.
Howie,
Thanks,
we could
Al.
also forward it to the NYPD for enforcement if people are parking their, their cars.
Okay, fine, thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Christina. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so Kevin went off to wash dishes, so he's not around. But I think so. I want to acknowledge that it's almost 9. We haven't started yet on the expense. Do people feel like they still have the energy to try to push through expense, which may be maybe another half hour? Or
I can hang in till 9:30 because at this point I do want to get this over with. Thank you.
Right, Latrice is supportive. Other folks.
I know, no problem.
If it's okay, and you guys are moving to expense,
Yeah, Al, thank you so much. Really appreciate you hanging with us and taking all those questions.
Absolutely. Appreciate your committee. So thanks so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Yeah, be well. Take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Good
Have
night.
a good night. Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, cool. Okay, so let's get the expense party started. I'm gonna share my screen. Share this. Share the whole window. Entire screen. Okay. All right, so here we have. Actually, no, I'm gonna share just the expense. There it is. Okay, hopefully people see the spreadsheet that I have, and this is I sent it as a PDF to people in an email back on I think a week or 2 ago. So hopefully that helps you follow along better if you can't see the the Zoom that I'm in. But yeah, a lot of people provided feedback over email on expense items, and so I have here a list of basically every possible thing we're considering right now. The first, I'm just going to go down the list one by one. Make a recommendation for changing language if applicable, and then we could decide on each item whether we want to keep it on the list, and if we have any opinion on changing where it currently is on the list, while keeping in mind that these are going to be resorted by agency after we're done. So there are things that let's say we have 12 items. It doesn't mean that the 12th item doesn't have a chance of surviving as long as it's attached to another agency, because it's grouped by agency and then sorted. So all right, I'm gonna get started. The first item, this is our historical number 1, was about conducting traffic and parking studies. And in the past, we had some language around what areas we wanted to focus on. And in the proposed amendment to that language, it would just add additional items to include in these traffic studies that are important to us. So actually tonight, very directly related to a letter we plan to write, I already wrote some language in here about do a study related to ways to that reduce traffic and congestion at the intersection of Yellowstone and Queens Boulevard. So basically, this just incorporates more language from things either I got from email or things that we've discussed as a committee. So I'm going to pause there. See, does anyone have any objection to keeping this item, which historically has been our number 1 item for DOT? And then does anyone have any objection to my proposal to amend the language to include more possible things to that the DOT can conduct traffic and parking studies on?
It's clear.
All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone. So the second item is it used to be this item related to a few different agencies. It was to fund, expand, or improve alternative transportation programs for seniors and those with disabilities. And it says this request seeks continued and new funding to improve transportation programs for seniors with disabilities, which include DIFTA MyRide, TLC's Accessible Dispatch, and GPS software for Accessoride. So an observation that I made about this request that we've submitted in the past is that it bundles like a few different programs from different agencies, which I think, kind of dampened its effectiveness, and it wasn't something that was supported. So my proposal is to actually amend this, split it up by agency, like parse out the different programs. And that's what I've done all the way down here in which is now row number 14. I did a few different things. So first, I wanted to highlight that there's this program called the Fair Fares program that basically, depending on how much income you make, you can qualify for a reduced price MetroCard or OmniCard to ride the subway or the transportation system. So that's like a separate thing out of that bundled item that I thought we could parse out. And then I also wanted to parse out the TLC program to its own line to be increased funding for the TLC Accessible Dispatch, which is very specifically targeted to helping seniors and people with disabilities move around. I also did one more thing, but I don't think we could actually do it anymore or request it because the program doesn't exist. DIFTA had this program called MyRide. And it was actually piloted in our community district, I think a year ago or 2 years ago. And unfortunately, there's no reason to believe the program is still around because I couldn't find anything on DIFTA's website anymore about the program. And Christine helped me out by doing some follow-up, and it didn't look like we had any kind of data from it or any kind of information on where it is. So even though I parsed it out, I'm going to actually not recommend we include it in expense because the program unfortunately doesn't look like the program went beyond the pilot year, which it had. So let me summarize here. So I want to replace this item that we've historically sent in this expense budget request and parse it out to these two items, the HRA one for Fair Fares and the item for TLC on Accessible Dispatch program. I guess anyone have an opinion on that, parsing it out, and does anyone have an opinion on keeping these parsed out ones? And does anyone oppose to having these on our list at all?
Just if I could just make If I could just make one comment. Well, first of all, first of all, I think it's great that you're putting Fair Fare in. Just heaven knows, since it is my agency, I'll have to recuse myself on that one particular one, but it's a great idea. And really, you really should talk about expanding it. The fact of the matter is that it's, my agency pays the city share of the Fair Fare. And to be perfectly honest, the amount, it's kind of plateaued for a long time. We pay about $6 million a year, a month, as the share. But, even if you look at it, that's only a very small part of the entire unit of it. And basically talking about both continuing and seriously trying to expand both through greater promotion of it, as well as I know that there have been some discussions of increasing the eligibility scope. I think that's an important thing. Again, as I say, I can talk about it, but I can't vote on it. But I think those are some ideas I would have. I would also think that, if you're going to be talking about accessoride, that could be parceled as an MTA item separately as well. So we can take advantage by both separating, but also we have different agencies that we can then put it under. So that would be it. So that's my comment there.
Yeah, thank you for that input, John. And Christine, you have your hand up. I don't hear you, Christine. Does anyone else hear her?
No.
Sorry, I was muted. I have a comment, and I don't want to be the, party pooper here, but you guys are not allowed to submit HRA budget priorities. So Latrice is the chair of the Committee for Those Without Shelter, who would take over HRA priorities. So maybe you could have a discussion with her about this priority. And the second thing is, I agree with John. We do get a lot of, one of the things in that multifaceted thing was GPS for accessorized vehicles. And I think Pat talks a lot about the need for upgraded GPS systems in the accessorized and stuff like that. So maybe you could make that one of your priorities instead, if that's something the committee wants.
We've done that in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me see. I think it's here.
Oh yeah, that was part of that original. That would continue.
Yep. It's like
right, because this description, this explanation now changes. We'll just make this the MTA line.
Is GPS software still a thing?
We think so on those vehicles.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're doing it via an app through the operator's phone or if they have an actual GPS device. But it's also not just about them looking at the map. We mean like the transponder so that you see it on your phone.
Yeah, makes sense. Like Lyft.
Yeah, and that's what Carla is saying there in the chat.
Yeah, it makes sense.
all right. Anything else related to those items before we continue looking at the chat? Okay. See, to use them. Carla, you want to clarify what you were saying about accessoride? I don't know if you want to. The GPS
sorry.
devices?
I was just speaking to with a question seemed to be, is that even still a thing, the GPS? And I know it is because I take the buses all over Manhattan, during the day and coming home. And so like you can always see exactly how far away on the MTA bus app where something is and how many minutes away it is. So there should be a way to also do it with Accessoride. And my father-in-law uses Accessoride to get everywhere. So like it certainly would be really helpful. I know from like personal experience it would be helpful,
Yeah.
but yes, it's certainly
Yeah,
an option. So.
I was thinking about it as like navigation, but you're totally right.
Right.
All right, great. Thank you, folks. Moving on, another kind of recurring request is item number 5, row number 5, provide additional funding for routine subway station, bus and train cleaning, security and maintenance, and CB6. I don't really have a comment on that. I think it looked like it just kind of met the parameters of how we should make a request. Anyone opposed to keeping this on the list as a priority for like the MTA, and or have any comment on changing the language or anything?
Board is clear.
All right, cool. Next up is it's a DOT DCP item. This did not make the budget last year, but it was something here that we can reconsider. It was to fund a community workshop related to pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements. So fund workshops to be conducted by DOT, New York City Planning, and or CB6 to enable residents of the district to provide input as to needed pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements. I don't know if Peter, you have more detail on that or. you know.
No, I mean the reason this came up was you know to have a proactive process rather than DOT showing up and say, oh, we've decided we're going to put them here. Is this would be an opportunity to give the community to proactively decide where we might want some of these things. And also, and what I really like about these workshops is it gives an opportunity for the community to kind of meet with each other and discuss, particularly as sometimes, you know, there's a lot of controversial issues from e-bikes to removing parking spaces and getting people talking to each other and understanding how maybe we could make some of these ideas work in community is a better process than just kind of deliver. So that was the impetus behind this idea. I hope that it continues as one of our priorities.
And my clarifying question for maybe Christine is, would DCP be the lead on this? I noticed we have two agencies, DOT and DCP.
I'm not sure what the what the reasoning was for DCP being on there. Peter, do you know? I mean, I think it would be a DOT program.
Yeah, I think it would be.
So you could probably just take out city planning.
Okay. All right, cool. We'll keep that there.
And then Edgar, I would also just take it out of the body of the request as well. Conducted by DOT and or CB6.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Next up is, thank you. Anyone else have any comments on that or want to say anything about that item?
Yeah, I was actually wondering if the reason why DCP is on it is because we were asking for neighborhood zoning plans. Like, I remember there was like a thing we were asking a while ago that we wanted to.
That's actually a land use request.
Yeah, but I wonder if like something got wired across or something there.
I think the land use committee also has it on their list.
Okay.
I think
question, just so I'm clear, we were talking earlier about one of the priorities, and I believe it was Christine who had mentioned the HRA. I'm trying to figure out what priority is that, because I do see my name on priority number 2, but I don't see HRA there.
Yeah.
Row 14.
Yeah. Row 14.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Let me scroll down.
Edgar, you can kick an email over to Latrice afterwards.
Yeah. I'll send you an email about it to see if your committee's willing to take that up, the fair fares expense item in your priorities list.
Okay. Oh, I see it moving. Okay, because I was like, all right, I see it now. Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but put it in writing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Sorry, I have a comment for number 5. I was away from my phone. For the cleaning frequency, from like for them to add funding for the cleaning of the subways and trains. Is it possible to ask them also to share what the schedule, like the frequency of the schedule is? Because it's hard to hold them accountable if they're adding frequency if we don't even know what the current frequency is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not something I think for our budget priorities, but Christine, is that something that you might be able to make a request of?
I can ask the MTA if they have a schedule. I don't know.
Yeah, like just the frequency, like of course they'll have the times, but just the frequency that they clean it, because we are really suffering with the dirty subway stations. And if you're to hold them accountable for keeping a frequency, then it's easier for us to know if they're cleaning every day or if they're cleaning once a week, twice a week. It's easier for us to keep them accountable.
Yeah. Thank you. That was good input, Maggie. Now moving on to row number 7. Fund open streets projects within the district. So this is directly related to Pedro's request earlier. And it's pretty broad. It doesn't mean a specific one, but you know, it's been there we didn't make it to the budget last year, but you know, I don't know if anyone has any opinion on it. Does anyone have any feeling about removing this item, amending it? Any comments around it?
Just keeping it since we've just approved, oh, well, yeah, I was gonna say, I suggest we keep it. We just approved the pilot turn into an actual street, and this budget is looking forward to 27, 28. So, but
And then I see Pedro and Carla had their hand up. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, so I remember when we first put this in, it was around open streets, like the city having open streets that don't require volunteers, by essentially putting in their own money. That doesn't seem like it happens, actually. That's not really how the open street program works. That said, the open street program is constantly on the shopping block for in the budget. So I would definitely wanted to keep that. We need to have open street programs in the district, because we only talk about the district funded, with the goal, of course, in our minds being that this is about funding the open street project program as a whole.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. And Carla and Daniel.
My only suggestion maybe would be to actually add school streets to this line also. So request funding for open streets and school streets program, because I think as a community board, we've said that we are in favor of school streets applications. I know that both 144 and 174's applications are in various spots of being approved. 144's was approved, 174 has conditional approval. And so just to Pedro's point, if open streets is constantly on the chopping block from a budget standpoint, then so is the school streets application. And we're just trying to keep the tiny humans safe in the school streets side. So if that was an option to add school streets to that line as well, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I totally hear that. I actually would probably need to be educated on the school streets, the budgeting angle of it. I know that, not I know, but I've at least done research that shows that a lot of our open street programming has been federally funded. But I actually don't know much about how school open streets are funded, or if they have a funding, or how they're funded. Does Christine or Peter or Heather know about that?
I don't.
I don't either. Go ahead, Peter, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not sure that they were, so the funding here, it's not like for like the program staff. The funding request here for open streets was, as Pedro was saying, where DOT staff would do the setup and takedown. My understanding with the school streets is that that's done by the schools. They set up, they take down. So I'm not sure if there's a thing to fund, you know what I mean?
So I can actually speak to that part because I wrote the application for 174. Yes, schools do the actual setup and breakdown, but there is not a budget for actually buying the barriers that you put outside of schools. And I guess my other concern would be if they were ever to eliminate the open streets program, like the staff that Pedro has obviously worked with, I've worked with. If they eliminated that program, then there would be no more school streets applications as well. And so I guess that would be my only request. If it doesn't make it, that's totally fine. But I figured if we're talking about the big program as a whole, then also talking about one of the major subsects that is directly impacting schools in this district, it might be worth mentioning.
Make this fund open street and school street project.
Would that be bundling though? I mean, it's kind of like what I had to do with separating out the TLC and the.
Yeah, but I was speaking to different agencies. This is the same agency, but other thoughts.
And sorry to jump the line here. I just want to clarify something. I don't know that they're federally funded. I'd never heard that before. As I understand, they come from the DOT budget, but the DOT budget is of course dependent on the host school project. School streets and open streets are actually the same program. So school streets are just open streets that happen to be on schools. There is funding and for the barriers. That's one thing. So you need to get the barriers, possibly other things, but also there's funding for the actual people who in DOT who actually run the program. So if the program does go away or it gets defunded, then it is possible that when schools go to apply for school street next year, then they may not have the capacity in DOT to actually go through the program, and then no, there goes that. So
Got it.
I definitely, even though they are technically the same thing, I definitely agree with the putting school streets and open streets as a language. Sorry for jumping the line.
No, that was helpful. So then it's not bundling. That's the answer. We can do it.
Awesome. And Daniel, you have something to add here? Thank you for being patient.
That's fine. Actually, I'm not even sure if this my question fits into the exact point in our discussion, but I still think that I just had a kind of a. Hold on a second. My headphone just came out. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually had an idea kind of that came from like the combination of discussions that we've been having, but I'm just a little afraid it might be a bundled question. So I saw that, I mean, I just a moment ago, we were talking about having workshops and also these open street programs. Has the board ever considered funding like a children's or a school-friendly like bicycle program? I don't know if that's a transportation request, that's an education request.
What do you mean by program?
Like,
you mean like a rodeo on a Saturday, or
funding a program that gives children the ability to learn how to ride bikes as part of the curriculum, or in some sort of I don't know how that would fit into this budgeting process, but like
that would be a new idea,
oh, okay.
which we can add on the list, but we're kind of working through this, so it becomes a question of whether we want to add a new idea.
Okay. So
All right.
there wasn't really a whole lot to it. It just the idea of using expense money to fund an education program that would get our kids more independent on the roads.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that is very interesting. It would be nice to know if such programs have been done before and see if like they're like a small scale and like we want to bring that program here. It sounds like something I feel like that's probably been done before, but yeah, it's definitely something we could consider. I would I mean we could add it here for sure, but I'll bookmark that, and then I want to return to just kind of close out the open streets conversation if you don't mind.
Yeah, sorry, that's fine.
No, it's cool. Anyone opposed to amending the language to also call out fund open streets and school open streets in the request?
Board is clear.
Okay. Very cool. All right. I'll tinker with the language later. Okay, this is item number 8. Row number 8. It's an old one. Didn't make the budget last year. It's to fund the designation and marking of moped motorcycle only parking zones in commercial and residential areas throughout the district. Peter or anyone else have context on this one and the
so one of the issues that you can hear me, one of the issues that keeps coming up is that some of our delivery riders, they'll come up on the sidewalk, leave their bikes there while they go to pick up their orders, and it creates congestion and therefore complaints. So the idea is to actually paint out boxes on the roadbed reserved for moped parking so that riders could park. That's where they're supposed to put their bikes, keep them off the sidewalk, and provide them with space specifically for their operation.
All right, cool. And Pedro, your hand is up. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, I believe I submitted this like I don't know how many years ago now. But this is something I've seen in other cities in the US where they used the corners of, especially in busy areas, like so think Austin Street, for example, which this already happens. They kind of already put their bikes on like all of the places that you're not supposed to park on the street, like the daylight intersections. But it would be great if we could get more of that around the neighborhood as well. But it would also work as a daylighting mechanism. Like right now, we're asking for universal daylighting. There's that built in the console. One way that will be somewhat quick to get hardened daylighting without actually installing anything, because that's something that I know DOT worry about, is if you make a motorcycle parking, because then you can see over a motorcycle. They're way more visible than a car. So if you guys are like putting them in the corners, then that kind of works as that hardened daylighting.
Thank you for that. That's really really good context.
I just want to flag a potential concern that is happening now in Flushing. So in Flushing, there's the residents that are kind of up at arms because of the DOT has plans to do something similar in Flushing where they're doing designated areas, but they're taking away parking spots to do those designated areas. So I know there's like concerns there. I'm sure we'll likely see similar concerns here. Maybe we can like specify, right? Like I think that there's definitely some areas where it makes sense, right? Like in front of Shake Shack where there's like no parking already. It definitely makes sense. But I wouldn't like I would want there to be a balance or some sort of community engagement before those determinations are made. Because it has happened in other areas and created community concerns around parking.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I'm just trying to think here, like and Peter, how long has this item been on the budget? Like, have we seen any movement from DOT on wanting to pursue this or?
As Pedro said, it first came up a few years ago, and I don't think I've seen an example of this. Actually, I think maybe I did, and I'm trying to remember where I saw it. Maybe in Astoria. Anyway, I'm not sure, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, I feel sort of like similar to the roundabout conversation we had, like, and also I'm just trying to think about how we managed to get parking spots for like the shared vehicles, like for vehicle sharing. Like I don't know if there's like just like another path that doesn't involve the budget to kind of start like some movement on this. But
I mean, the shared vehicles was just, and that was an initiative by the city working with those and so those spaces have been removed or are in the process of being removed.
Okay.
But I mean, if we're looking, I mean, the question also is where does this fall in the priority? If we're looking to see, like, is this the right place for it? Particularly as we've items, this might not be something that needs to be at the top of the list, or near the top within our top 5 for DOT.
No, Christina, thank you, Peter. Yeah, I see your hands up, Christine.
To answer your question, I know you're saying, is there another way to put in these requests? So anything that the committee wants to request, we can request through the DOT. The issue is that we need specific locations. So I can't put in a request to the DOT and say, can you put in motorcycle designated parking in Community Board 6? I have to say, like we have to put in specifics. So that's kind of the difference between like budget requests. You're kind of giving them the idea, like we would like to see this in our community. We'd like to have discussions about it. Whereas like a service request is more, we think that this is a good idea on Queens Boulevard and Austin Street or whatever, the location is that you think it's best fit. So I think that's like something to think about when you're talking about different ways to request things.
And would a traffic study be something that we could have use as a vehicle to get DOT to generate locations for us if we wanted to get possible locations and we didn't know of any right off the top of our head? Or do we have to come with those ideas on our own? Come up with those ideas on our own for specific locations?
For this, you mean for this specific? I don't know that if we suggested to DOT that they tell us where would be the best place for these in our community. I don't know that that would be the most successful way to do it, just from my experience, but I don't want to speak for the DOT.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll keep it here, and then we'll decide on the ranking. If not tonight, we'll decide on it, see if it's still something we want to consider. But thank you all for that information. Next up, I'm going to just skip to item number 9, fund expansion of City Bike in the district. So this is actually happening. Starting in July, the DOT is actually going to start asking the general public for locations for where City Bike should go. So yeah, this is actually happening.
Only in half the district.
Oh, and only half the district. Okay. So
how do you know she lie?
Okay. So yeah, maybe. So yeah, so it's happening, but it's partial. And then Pedro, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just curious. How do you know it's starting in July? Because I've been trying to figure that out for a while.
We're special people, Pedro.
I see. So you
We
guys
get
are
information. They're supposed to be opening up the online Suggest a Station interactive map on July 1. And we'll push that link out once it's live.
That's great to hear, because I've been asking them in every meeting that I'm with them, and they just go like, "Oh, I don't know."
It's funny, but so yeah, this is expense item request. I don't think I have any recommendation for changes in the language. Just didn't make the budget last time, but it is something that's happening partially, and so yeah. Does anyone have any opinion on whether or not to keep this item, and or making any changes to the language of the item?
I just had like to keep it because we still have half the district. I also want to highlight, since we have a bunch of new folk joining us, when in that column where it says did not make the budget, that means that it's our priority in this committee, but then it goes to the next step in our process. They're all chairs meeting, and then the whole board votes on all the competing different proposals from all the different committees. And that's where the real horse trading happens. And some of our priorities make it through to the master list and some don't. So that's what that means. But we still get to say that it's our priority out of this committee, even if it doesn't ultimately make it to the end.
I thought that this one did make it to the end. I don't know. For some reason, I remember City Bike being part of that conversation and moving it up the list last year. I might be thinking about something else, but
I think you might be thinking about our process, not what.
Oh, maybe.
Without the main list in front of me, and I trust that Edgar's put so much work into this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I just remember this specific initiative, and I think you're right. It could have been this meeting.
I kind of had the same memory as Eugene, to be honest, but okay.
Yeah, let's keep it.
But maybe we fact checked it. I mean, I trust Edgar is probably correct, but maybe
checking. I'll get back to you.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Anyone opposing that? So.
Right, cool. So we'll keep it. Next up is a hybrid one. It's about that also didn't make it to the final budget. To increase funding for snow removal of sidewalks, crosswalks, and bike lanes. as a request for funding the hiring of laborers to ensure the timely removal of snow and ice from sidewalks, crosswalks, bike lanes in the district. The crosswalks on Queens Boulevard are a special problem area after significant snowstorms. So this has a feeling for me of DSNY is the primary on this one because it's about cleanup.
Yeah. Are we allowed to send them budget requests? Or is that outside our remit?
No, you could send them suggestions. Oh, not, you have to send it to the sanitation committee, yes.
Yeah.
I think
Okay,
DOT
so-
does some snow removal, but not a lot.
Okay.
I will say they've been much better in the last like 2 years. And they've bought special equipment and they've actually been doing a great job on the bike lanes on Queens Boulevard. So
It's also parks sometimes, like around the parks does it. I would say they do too good of a job in that they leave way too much salt behind, but the sidewalks are usually cleared pretty quickly.
All right, so we'll pass this along to our sanitation committee colleagues. But any recommendations on changing the language before we ship it off to them? Okay.
it's clear.
All right. Next up is row number 11. Fund additional signage and street markings regarding turns at Austin and Yellowstone Boulevard. It's the rationale here is to better organize traffic and additional signage instructing pedestrians regarding the barn stands at Austin Street and 71st. I guess 70. This is interesting. I'm not sure why it's like kind of jumbled up.
Disconnect there. I would suggest we actually take this one out.
Yeah.
I think they've done what they can with that. And people are adapting, at least at 71st and Austin. My sense is that things are moving kind of get it. They figured out this allows you to cross diagonally.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing, but people now get it. So I think we can take this one out. Daniel's hands up.
Yep.
I think we also need to talk to NYPD to stop parking their cars on Yellowstone on that extra lane.
Oh my God.
It makes it hard for cars that are turning on Austin to take the lane, and then it's a scramble.
So much there, like we even redesignated parking for them over by Girard Tower, 1 block over, so that they could actually clear that lane when DOT actually tried to did redesign the intersection of Austin and Yellowstone and provide for that turning lane. And then we gave them more parking spaces over in front of Girard Tower. And that worked for a little bit, and now they're back.
Yeah, because they also park like any cars that they pick up from accidents. They leave them there. So it becomes like a car that sits there for a couple of weeks, if not months.
I will just say that we mention this to the NYPD at every meeting we attend with them, just because it's a pet peeve of ours as well. But as Peter said, it did stop for a little while. I think Councilman Holden also spoke to them at one point. I mean, I know it's like the border of his district and Lynn Schulman's district, but he did speak to them, and it did stop for quite some time. It was maybe one car in the lane, as opposed to like the whole lane being taken up. But we will continue to stress it to them. So the 112 precinct blames Queens North, saying that they have all the vehicles and they're the ones that don't pay attention to the rules. But yeah, we are aware of it, and we meant, I think every meeting we go to with the 112 precinct, we do mention it.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up is so we're gonna Peter's proposal is to remove it. Daniel, did you agree to that proposal? Is that what you're...
Yeah, I just wanted to echo something. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I think that we have sort of an over-reliance on people's trust in reading signs. There's probably signage overwhelming, over too many signs. I don't know. That's just my thought, that maybe just there has to be something better than expecting people to read the signs, because they're still not doing it. And how many more signs can you put?
I can relate to that, Daniel. One of my pet peeves is like when the buses need to turn and there's signage right there, plain as day. Exhibit A being Woodhaven and Metropolitan, like where the Wendy's is. There's a sign there that says stop at that white line. For whatever reasons, cars don't do it. And then when the Q23 shows up, all hell breaks loose. And as a bus rider, it irritates me to no end. So I empathize with your take on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear you. And for now, we're just gonna drop this one. Anyone opposed to removing this item? Signage? Nope. Okay, let's move on. Next up is back to signals. Karen, she wanted us to reconsider this old request to fund signal timing changes at Union Turnpike and Markwood Place and Park Lane. Signal timing changes could better improve traffic flow and increase pedestrian safety. This sounds like it could be a service request.
Yeah, should we turn this into a letter?
Let me follow up with DOT first, because they did make some changes at that intersection. Half of it is Board 9, half of it is ours. But they did change some things there. So let me speak to them and see what the status is, if they're doing anything further or if there's something else they can do. I can do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. And this last one, so these are new. Now I'm going to start with new things. I already talked about a few of them. The first is something that Latrice and Richard Cooper proposed, which was to hire additional school crossing guards across the district. I think this item would be NYPD, so we'd probably have to refer it to that committee.
I'm fine with that.
But yeah, I think the way it's written, I think we're supportive of it. I don't think we does anyone have any edits to recommend before we send it to the appropriate subcommittee to hire additional school crossing guards?
And no, that's good. And this comes up so many times in conversations that it is. So that's referred out to the Public Safety Committee. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Public service, Veterans Public Service.
Cool. So I'll make sure to do that. Then I'm going to skip down to item number 17. This is a pitch by Karen to because she wants to have she wants the possibility of there to be art at one of the entries of the Queensway to be funded. That art to be funded by one of the DOT's programs, the arts program. So, basically this is kind of like a general request to increase funding for the program so that there may be a possibility of someone from our community to apply for that and obtain those funds. It's not super specific. It's kind of generic. It's just, kind of expressing interest that we want the funding in this program to not disappear. So yeah, does anyone have any questions about that expense item and or recommendations to change the language?
Question about this is we can submit 5 budget priorities per agency. So as things currently stand on our list, this would be item number 6 for the DOT, if my count is right. It's not 6, it's 7, but so that would be outside of our 5. And so the question becomes, do we bother with it, or is there a reason to move it up ahead of the other 5 and bump somebody off the end? And just personally, I don't think that this seems like a really cool program, but I don't think it deserves ranking above any of the ones currently in the top 5 positions for DOT. Pedro's hand is up.
Yeah, Yeah, if the goal is to essentially put art somewhere, I remember she mentioned the Queensway idea, and then she also mentioned like the, I think it was like the Queens Boulevard bike lane barriers, because that's another space that you can put in art. If that is the goal, then, because I went to a session the DOT held on this program specifically. They essentially just say like, all you need to do is just apply and find an artist and then do it. So if it's just like keep the program funded, that's cool. But I haven't really heard anything about the program being defunded or anything like that. As I understand, it's not a very expensive program because by and large, all you're doing is just paying someone to paint something.
Okay. Is there anyone here in support of putting this into one of our, like swapping out basically one of our top 5 with this program, or yeah, that's basically the statement. Okay, so we're going to keep it off the ranking. Then this next one is a kind of juicier one. And thank you, Latrice. Appreciate you being here tonight. It's Circuit, the Circuit Ride pilot. So Peter and I have talked about it a lot. And we've actually, with the help of Christine and Heather, started talking to some elected officials about it. And the only one we've actually had a conversation with so far was very forthcoming about that. If they see this on our expense budget list, that it'll be a very big help to getting them getting elected officials to really support throwing money into this idea, to piloting Circuit. So for people that are new to the committee, many, I'd say like 5 months ago or so, Peter and I started conversations with this vendor called Circuit that offers electric vehicle shuttle service to communities. With the help of the vendor, we came up with like 2 general service areas that could possibly cover our district for like where this electric vehicle shuttle service could operate. And the full board, after we did research and like kind of refined the proposals, the full board was supportive of pursuing this idea of getting this pilot funded for our community. So apologies, I didn't recirculate the deck for this because I'm happy to recirculate it and also reshare a link to that community board meeting because that was recorded. So long story short, we're looking right now, what we're doing is looking for elected officials and other sources of money to fund this pilot. In parallel, the vendor is, I think, trying to work with the private sector to acquire funding too. And so all that to say is, I think Peter and I think, and also an elected official agrees that it would be beneficial for the community board to list this as a expense budget item so that we can get signal that we want funding from elected officials for this. I know that was a mouthful, and I'm going to stop and see if anyone has questions, especially our new people that are unfamiliar with this program or what it does.
And I'll just add, it's kind of like a hyperlocal Uber that would be free or low cost, like $1 a ride, only service our immediate geographical area. And the idea is to get folks who either don't have cars of their own or better yet, even leave their car at home so that they could do their shopping, visiting, and errands in the district without clogging our streets.
I like the idea of moving this one up, considering the work that Edgar and Peter did to solicit this to the board and the support from the board already, as well as just like it being relevant to an elected official. So it seems like it's like top of mind and could be potentially relevant. It's something that could happen. So sounds like a good thing to move up and trade with one of the more stagnant things that we've seen not move forward in the past.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so Peter's proposal is to swap it out with moped parking with item number right now would be item number 4 on the DOT only list. Is anyone second that idea? Swapping it out for the moped motorcycle parking idea.
I second it.
Thank you.
Howard.
Howard. All right. Anyone oppose? All right. Cool. And Carla just added a comment. The DC circulator started as a pilot about 20 years ago and now is incredibly successful. I believe it started as $1 and now it's free. Cool. All right, so this will bump down the moped idea, and this will be our new number 4. Awesome. All right, cool. So I think we're finished for the night, unless people have new ideas they want to add right now to this list. I know that we've gone through several iterations of this already, and people have been really great about emailing stuff, but I also acknowledge that there's a new crowd of folks that just came in. Maybe this is all new to you, and I understand it may be hard to come up with an idea now, but I just also want to open the floor for any additional ideas before we kind of call it a night.
Pedro's handed up.
Oh, Pedro. Thank you.
Yes, this is not me trying to add anything to this per se, but I mentioned in the chat that I have some possible new business that I want to bring before the committee. Karen is not in the call, but we chatted a couple of weeks ago, I guess now, about because we keep running into this issue in this committee, which is that, and in the budget priority process as well, which is that we want traffic studies, we want traffic studies, we want traffic studies, we want traffic studies, and DOT kind of goes like, and then that's it. Now, in an effort to try to get out of that cycle, I'm posting something in the chat. On Western Queens in Astoria, around Astoria, I should say, there was this group of elected officials that came up with this concept of the Western Queens Street Safety Plan, where instead of asking DOT to do studies, they told DOT what they want to see. So they put together a list of things they want to see in the neighborhood. There were some open streets, there were some bike lanes, there were some pedestrian infrastructures, daylighting, reimagining traffic enforcement to be more efficient, etc., etc. It's a long document, but anyone's interested, you can read it. And some of those things DOT they cover. Like right now, for example, DOT is in the process of completely redesigning 31st Avenue in Astoria, and now they just released that they're going to be doing something on 31st Street in Astoria. Both things that were on this document. And when DOT was asked about it, I was reading in an article about it, they said that they pointed to this document as the reason why they were doing it. Now, in the past, the board has asked, for example, for daylighting, and then the daylighter 108th. So I was talking to Karen about something else, and well, actually on the topic, and she had the idea of possibly having a committee on I'm calling it the low traffic neighborhood committee because that's a term that's being used right now by a lot of people. For those that don't know, low traffic neighborhood is a concept from London that essentially uses infrastructure in the neighborhood to try to reduce the number of cars, which is the thing that we keep talking about, in order to reduce the amount of traffic in the neighborhood and calming the neighborhood, making it safer for people to walk, for kids to go to school, whole shebang. Which is kind of what this Western Queens plan is. It's kind of like that. There's essentially low traffic neighborhoods throughout Astoria. So I would like to, I don't know how to do this, Peter and Edgar, you can tell me, to somehow have like a subcommittee or something on investigating low traffic neighborhood plans in the neighborhood of Rico Park and Forest Hills. And to possibly coming out, we made
a subcommittee of
yes.
This committee.
Yeah.
To study ideas for kind of reducing traffic generally.
Yes. And my goal is to essentially create some sort of document, maybe not as detailed as this one, because this one, they have elected politician money, but some sort of like concrete set of ideas that we can then go to DOT and say, hey, by the way, these are some things that we believe you should look into, as opposed to just keep asking for traffic studies. Because I feel one issue with
That's
traffic.
something to put to the committee at large.
Yes. I don't know if you want to put now or if you want to put next in the next meeting or not.
But it's about to be 10 o'clock.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
So I'm okay just leaving it as new business for the next meeting.
Yeah, because I think there'll be some opinions on that.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it up early so we could have a month to think about it. But going back to the budget items, is there any additional word before I kind of propose a vote to close the meeting, end the meeting? All right. Well, thank you all very much for your patience and your contributions. I know it's been a long night, so I'm gonna I'm gonna ask, can I have a second to adjourn the meeting? All right. Thank you all very much. And I really hope everyone has a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Good night, everyone. And if anyone has questions, any of our new members about the budget process, reach out to myself, to Christine, to Mark Laster. We're all happy to answer questions about this kind of stuff. Because like I'm getting messages from some of our new members that, they're not on our committee mailing list yet. Committee. So you put out a lot of material to our list, which they didn't get the benefit of just because that's the way it is. So, but we had a lot of great participation on this call from our new members, which is really appreciated.
Yes.
Right. We need to find out a way to better loop you into the sources of information. But if you reach out to the office, they can get you what the priorities were for the last year. So if you're going to sit in on other committee meetings in the next couple of weeks, you can have those in front of you. Okay.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, all. Be well.
Happy Memorial Day.
Yes.
Oh,